Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to The Robby Row Show, episode 73 with Patrick Jones. Let's hear a soundbite from Patrick.
That's why it's really important to work with players on a regular basis so you still have that feel and understanding of, okay, like I can't just throw out fancy words here and expect them to understand.
Listening to Clear the Mechanism. The Robby Row Show. The Robby Row Show.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Robby Rowland on The Robby Row Show, episode 73 with Patrick Jones. So, a little background story of Patrick and I's friendship / relationship. Networking relationship. I don't know even what you would call it, but I think it was a mutual reaching out to each other. He runs a baseball podcast, and he was obviously one of the guys that I looked up to when I was starting mine. So I believe I reached out to him and wanted to kind of get some insight on what that looks like as far as, you know, pretty much running a podcast, and ended up going on his show. I want to say that was back in like November, maybe September. It was a while ago, but when I went on a show, I told him, I was like, yo, like, come on mine. And I apologized in the beginning of the show, but I just now had him on. But this is a really good episode for you guys. Patrick's, like I said, he's a podcast host. He's also a hitting coach. He's played college baseball at Xavier. Just a good hitting guy to talk to. And him and I, obviously, we just connect really well. Very similar aspects, both the same age. Just a really good free-flowing conversation today. We actually mentioned that, like, at the end of the episode, how it was just like, yeah, we were just kind of talking, catching up. So we start the show by talking strictly like podcast and kind of give you guys like a little insight as far as like what that looks like and just actually like how tough it really is. So, you know, him and I both get a lot of questions regarding, you know, if someone wants to start a podcast, like how do they do it and the ins and outs of it. And so if that's one of you guys that's listening to this episode, like you come to the right spot. Then we kind of go into his coaching background, talk about him and the relationship that he creates with his players, and interpreting the data that like all of these means of data analytics are giving us, and how he can kind of relate that to the player, right? So if it's obviously like a high school player, I think you heard in the soundbite, it's not going to do him any good if you start using all these big words and all these numbers. It's probably going to do more harm than good, actually. And I can definitely relate that or relate to that, especially with like my clientele as well. It really, like, we don't do, as instructors, we don't do our job well if we don't know how to relay that data efficiently. So that's definitely some good insight for you guys there. I do want to take this time and maybe spend like a minute just talking about my website. I think I said it on the last episode that launched, but finally got that thing up and running. It was under construction for about 3 months. It is now live. You can check that out at www.therobbyrowshow.com. I encourage you guys to register. There's a register page that you can find at www.therobbyrowshow.com/register. And I'll link that into the show notes. Basically what that does is it registers you into like my database, because I'm going to start doing more like newsletter stuff and then keep you guys up to date as far as the things that I'm producing, whether it be, you know, pitch sequencing, pitch grips, breakdowns, analysis, podcasts, like whatever it is, like literally everything that's coming from me. I want to start doing like weekly newsletters and kind of just keep you guys in the know. And then when it comes to my website, I have 3 services now. I have consultation plans, FaceTime, calls, emails. I get a lot of questions now, and this kind of allows me to filter out those who are serious about asking the questions that they ask. Obviously, the mechanical video analysis is a big hitter. You guys can check that out. And then I have monthly coaching plans. And I think the coolest part of the website that I've upgraded is a content library. So all of the content that I produce on like Twitter, Instagram, it is now going into my content library on my website. For you guys, all you got to do is enter your email address and you get full access to that content library. So yeah, go check that out. Like I said, www.therobbyrowshow.com. I will link that in the show notes for those of you who want to check that out, and I encourage you to do so. It makes me feel good, and I appreciate it. All right, let's get to the episode 73 with Patrick Jones, the host of Patrick Jones Baseball Podcast. All right, guys, hope you enjoy. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are live, the Robby Row Show. So I have Patrick Jones on the show of the podcast, Patrick Jones Baseball. Dude, I'm sorry that it took so long for me to get you on my show, man, but like, welcome, and how are you doing today?
Doing awesome, man. Hey, when you're a machine and you put out as many episodes as you do, dude. First of all, what I like.
I'm an idiot. That's what you're saying?
No. I have a different perspective because, like you said, I do a podcast as well, so I know how much time it takes. But what what I'm most impressed of, and this is like the honest to God truth, is the amount of time that you put into promoting your episodes when you do the subtitles, when you do like people don't realize how much time that takes. Like when I see that consistently from someone, like. I was like, that dude works. Like, dude. He's a grinder. I'm serious.
Dude, I don't think you realize, and maybe you do, I don't know, but like how much that means, like honestly, because it like that's the behind the scenes stuff though, that like no one realized. And you and I were just talking kind of off the show about podcasting and like what advice we would give to people. And it's that stuff right there that they don't see, like, bro, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but like those promos, I only do two now. The one of the soundbite and the quote, like those take probably like 3 hours out of my.
I believe it.
It sucks, dude. But,
I believe it 100%. And then like the thing is, like whenever you do something, you want to return, right?
Right.
I mean, naturally. So the return in podcasting isn't for money, like monetary or anything like that. Right. You want people to like listen to your show, like more downloads and things like that. And like it's hard to like push a button and be like, well, this will equal more downloads or this will. And so like even if you don't see more downloads, to continue to still do it over and over again. Like I got mad respect for anybody who does that.
100%, dude. And like that kind of is a good segue into like yours and I's advice to like people, because like I said, we talked a little bit off the show about like people approaching us and being like, yo, we want to get into podcasting because we obviously know that it's like the hot take these days. And like, I mean, you called it, dude, like start and then just get going, because it's funny, dude. Sometimes I'll go back when I'm really like struggling with like, okay, what is my why behind this? And I'll go back and listen to like my first episode, and I'll just be like, oh my goodness, that's like brutal. Because it's true, right? Like you just continuously learn things and you grow and you find new methods and things to incorporate into the show to make it better and appeal more. And I mean, would you say that's like your experience as well from the start?
Oh, 100%. And the same thing where when I'm just doing intros, like there'll be times where I'll do intros and it'll take me 4 or 5 times, and I'll be like, oh, that sounds stupid. Like, let me like.
we could have a whole podcast on this subject right here.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's crazy. But the thing is like it's so much fun. And it's so cool. I mean, dude, like I'm able to connect with you, and like we've built this
100%,
relationship.
yeah.
And you're able to just meet so many different people and go to different people's like houses and just make those connections. And I don't like have like millions of downloads. I've got a pretty decent following in downloads now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like early on. And we were talking about this again on the show earlier. It's one thing to start a podcast or to start anything, but after probably 30 to 40 episodes in, it become like it's a grind, because you're not seeing, it's not a straight line up in terms of you don't start out with a podcast like the first episode's like 500 or 1,000 downloads, and then the next one's 5,000, the next one's 10,000. Like it takes time to build a following, and when you don't see like that constant growth for like weeks and months, and that starts happening 30, 40, 50 episodes in, like that's the time where like if you can stick with it and just keep going, like that's going to kind of make or break you. And I felt that. Hell, I sometimes still feel that.
Yeah, no doubt. But it's like it's with anything, right? Like foundation, like establishing why you do anything, right? Like that's why it's funny because it's like a direct correlation to what I tell like my clients and like baseball players is like, okay, well, if you come to me and you just play the game because you're kind of good at it, or you play the game to like be popular, you're probably going to fizzle out because you don't love it. But like,
Yep.
it's the same thing with podcasting, man. If like your foundation is to supply quality content on the regular freaking on a weekly basis, then you're going to do everything in your power to do that. It's funny, dude. Right before I hopped on, I was like grinding because I just started like physical therapy. I'm coming back from surgery, and like I just have like all of this stuff to do. And I was like, "F it, dude! Like I gotta go jump in a cold shower, and like I gotta freaking reboot and like get this thing going because it's a grind, dude. Like with everything." And that kind of is a good segue into like what I want to talk to you about because I mean, you're doing like hitting stuff on top of this, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Doing lessons, pretty much full time, on top of this, which I love doing. It's a ton of fun, and in baseball, it's so much about. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I go on social media and I steal a lot of different ideas off of people on social media who I talk to, different coaches and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't think a lot of people realize is just going on Twitter, for example, and posting a couple posts and using some fancy words and making yourself that's not coaching. Like for like some of the stuff I read on there, like I don't even know what they're talking about. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of like bridge that gap where we're taking some different technology, whether it's K-Vest or a Rapsoda or whatever, and kind of simplifying it so a high school kid can kind of understand or at least have a grasp, or a parent or a college kid. And so that way you're helping people. And so I like to do that too. Like when I'm working with lessons, I'm not going to tell a kid like, I need you to get into anterior pelvic tilt a little bit more here. You know what I mean? Like you got to come up with simple, and that's why it's really important to work with players on a regular basis so you still have that feel and understanding of, okay, like I can't just throw out fancy words here and expect them to understand because it is tough. It's tough. I mean, I work with a lot of high school kids, probably more than anything. It's really, really difficult to make changes.
Yeah.
Like once those patterns are established, like it's very, very difficult to change those. Like it takes a lot of time and work, man.
Yeah, and you know what's funny, dude? I want to say a phrase, but it's kind of inappropriate for my show. But it's like the same thing, like within the industry. Is I think people come in like on a Twitter thread or Instagram, and they think that if they drop like X amount of big words or like $10 words, then they all of a sudden have credibility. And I think you hit it on the head, man, as far as like those guys like almost do more harm than good. And I think the importance of like what you're saying as far as a middleman is super high because now you're having all of these high school kids or, maybe even younger, even college dudes, like now they're trying to understand that information. But then it comes to a point where like that information is almost getting to where they're, mind deafing themselves and it's information overload and they're trying too hard to understand all of this when in reality, like the game should be simple, and you take that. So like talk about that. Like, I mean, like how can you, is it just understanding like the individual that you're working with and understanding like, okay, this guy, does X, Y, and Z well, and he doesn't do this well. And then you have to kind of like mold your strategy towards that individual, or just like kind of talk a little bit about like your coaching strategy per individual.
Yeah, 100%. So what I like to do, like with each hitter that I work with, is like I want to understand how they move, right? So I'll put them through like some sort of like movement screen, like I did like on base use. So I'll use that screen just to see if there's any physical deficiencies or if maybe they can't do something physically or they're have hip mobility problems or things like that. And then after that, like what I like to do is I bought a K-Vest, which is a 3D motion capture system. So I'll put that on the player too. And so what that does, and I'm trying to simplify it, is
right.
It's so there's 4 sensors. You put one on your pelvis. There's straps, so you just strap them on. You put one on your pelvis, one on your torso, one on your lead arm, and then one on your glove, so your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want each swing to be in the correct sequence, right? Energy starts from the ground, works its way all the way up through the trunk out into the arms. So what a lot of times you'll see is it starts from the ground, starts to work its way up, and then you'll see the lead arm race out in front of everything else. So after each swing, it pops up whether you're in the correct sequence of pelvis first, right, torso, lead arm, then hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it also gets way, way, way more detailed. You can get into time to contact. You can get some other things too. So, again, really want to kind of simplify this. So what's really cool about this is, what I like to use this for is, okay, once I understand like what's kind of going on, I read the graphs, I can understand there's a biofeedback part of it as well. So I could say, maybe like Robby, like we're hitting together and, you're like, you need to get like your back hit maybe into the pitch a little bit more. There's a biofeedback part, so I can kind of like program it that you have to get into a certain position right at contact. And I want you to feel that position, because hitting, no matter what anyone says, it's so much about feel. So I want you to feel what's correct. So I'm going to program it so once you're in that position, like you'll hear a beep.
Oh.
And so like to get in that position, like you have to hear this beep, and if you don't get into that, like it doesn't beep. So like and then you can kind of program it any way. So like each segment, like maybe your lead arm, you're not in the correct slot. So I can program it for that too, so you can feel it there. So there's so many different things that I use it for, but I like to use it for that as well. And then also, again, I know high velocity and hitting off high velocity has become a really huge thing lately, and I'm sure you've seen that too.
Sure.
Again, younger kids, like their central nervous system, like they haven't really developed like a true pattern, and so it's kind of easier to mold. So sometimes, just using a pitching machine, that can work, and maybe they will self-organize correctly and move properly. But what I've noticed is the higher up you get, like working with high school and some college kids, just hitting high velocity does not like get them to self-organize necessarily correctly. Like, yeah, you'll self-organize and do all that thing, but sometimes we need to do some soft toss and tee work or some movement stuff and just put the bat down so we can like start moving correctly. And actually, I got a story to tell you. A few weeks ago, I was on Instagram and I got a notification of a new follower, and so I just so happened to see it was Josh Donaldson. So I was like,
what?
yeah, I was pretty pumped.
Yeah.
I was pretty pumped. I was like, man, and so like a few minutes later, I got another notification that said, Josh Donaldson has just commented on one of your posts, and I was like, whoa. And so I checked it out. It was like the throw up emoji 3 times on one of my posts.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And so I went to the post. He in my defense, he wasn't ripping on what I said, but I put a video up, I think of Matt Olson doing a hitting drill. This
was MLB Network, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was a good one. That was in spring training.
Yeah, and so I responded like what don't you like about it or whatever, and he wrote a freaking blog post.
Dude, I'm on it right now. I'm looking for it. All right,
yeah,
so I found
he wrote a blog post as a response, and what he said like made sense, right? And what he was saying is like the problem with a lot of these different demos that these hitters are doing is they don't really understand what they're doing in the swing. Like they don't actually understand like how you're supposed to swing, like how they actually swing. And it makes sense because, and look at Chris Davis, I'll use that as an example. If you truly don't understand like what you're doing, like it's going to be tough when you're starting to struggle, because just having a feel or just saying, well, this feel works for me. Like what happens when that feel change? Because feels change.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes if I'm hitting off of you, for example, right, you throw hard, I might need to think swing down, right, to get my barrel on top, right, just simplifying it. But maybe if it's a slower guy, maybe I need to think flatter through the zone or swing up. Well, if I don't truly understand what I normally do or how I normally move, like it's going to be tough for me to kind of like go back and forth, if that makes sense.
Dude, totally. So I just had Matt Antonelli on my show, dude, and the soundbite to the episode was him talking just about that. Was like, he was a first round pick, dude. He was a dude. He
Yeah.
was a big leaguer within 2 years. And then he started like struggling, and he was like, I had just always envisioned myself having success. Like I didn't really think to put 2 cents into, like what am I doing that's making me successful, right? And it makes total sense, dude. But for the listeners, I'm gonna link this. I'm gonna link that post. So I'm gonna link the post that you're talking about with Matt Olson. And then just so they can see that blog that Donaldson wrote. But, dude, he's been known to, like, do that. I respect him because I think he's a total hitting geek, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
I love how you're like, hey, come on the podcast to discuss.
Yeah, he never responded to that one.
Dude, I wish he did. He'd be a good, like, I mean, I think everyone has seen, like, him talk about his swing, right? Like, how would you break down that? Like, what with what he says? You'd say, like, he's got a pretty good feel for, like, what he's trying to accomplish?
He knows his body. He has self-awareness, so he knows exactly like how his body works and how it needs to work for the swing, and that's extremely important. I would say now here's another thing. Not everyone needs to necessarily, and this is the hard part about hitting, right? Because
with anything in baseball, really,
with anything, but like it's hard because. Well, then you see Mike Trout and A-Rod give a demo, and they swear they swing down, right? Yeah. When they do that. So I mean, it's tough, but again, those guys are freaks, and I know that I don't want to limit anybody who's listening to this, but the fact of the matter is I still really like and agree with what Josh is saying. I just think it's important to really just know what's going on and how you are swinging, and like how. And I like to tell players all the time, like, look, this is how, this is what you're doing. Okay, now I want you to feel and think, hit the top of the ball here, right? I want you to feel, for example, swing down. Now this is important too. You need to realize I don't actually want you to swing down, right?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that because you actually have a natural loopy swing. So we're just trying to even it out here, but you're not actually doing that. And so I found that to be important because, again, it's hitting. You can't look at yourself while you're hitting, right, in a game or something like that. So I don't know. I agree with a lot of that, and I don't know much about pitching. If that's the case too with pitching, is that similar at all?
Yeah, but look, like my thing, dude, is it's per the athlete's interpretation of what is going on with them. You know what I mean? Because it's the same thing with pitching, dude, and working with guys is like, look, I have to tend my coaching strategy to like what they're feeling instead of maybe what I'm perceiving them to feel. So, right. and what I mean by that is like, if they're saying like, hey, and this is probably like a popular one is like, I feel like my arm I'm throwing sidearm, when in reality they could potentially just be like high 3/4. And it's like, okay, well, if that's like kind of like how you feel, I can't tell you that that's like right or wrong because that's you. And at the end of the day, it's not me throwing the baseball for you, or for you, it's not you hitting the ball for them. So it's like we have to do to the best of our ability to like mold our stuff to that. But it's so cool, man, like talking to a hitting guy, just because like the correlations between hitting and pitching is like, it's amazing. It's so similar. And then when you spoke on the K-Vest, the one question that popped up in my head was like, can we not use that for like pitching?
They're working on a pitching one right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they are working on one right now. They have like you could use. So here's how actually it got started. Okay, so I went out to Scottsdale for On Base U. I met with those guys over at K-Vest because K-Motion, their headquarters is out there, and so they've been in golf since 2006.
Right.
They never wanted to get into baseball or any of that. And so what happened was actually when Marcus Stroman tore his ACL. and was rehabbing it.
Yeah.
He actually used the cave. They actually used the
Yep.
K vest on him for the rehab to kind of just gauge how he was doing. And then one of the people who was like leading his rehab, like he's like, why don't like you put this into baseball? Like, why isn't this in baseball? And so that's when K-Vest was like, yeah, you're right. Like, we should start moving in that direction. And then I just had on Dr. Greg Rose, and he's used it on more hitters than anybody, or just looked at the data probably more than anybody. So I mean, it's huge. It's coming for pitching, so don't worry, pitchers. Like, it's coming. You guys have enough tools.
We feel left out, man.
You guys have enough tools out there, man. You guys are further ahead than the hitters are right now. We're still arguing on launch angle swings and stuff.
Dude, it always reminds me, like, when we talk about like data, it always goes like, remember when we were in Little League, dude, and that baseball came out and it was like you threw it and it could tell you how fast it was?
Yes. Yeah.
Bro, I want to like bring that back and like double patent it and like so everyone's using it. It's like the MLB official ball. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world.
I remember that too. Some people don't like the radar guns and things like that. I love it. I mean,
why wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I like that stuff. But actually, I just thought of something else. Going back to kind of talking about like feeling as a hitter, Randy Sullivan of the Florida Baseball Ranch used to tell me, you would love him.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, you got to use their verbal cues. He's like, that's why it's so important. Like, you need to ask them like what they're feeling, because what you like, and you just talked about this, like what you feel doesn't matter. It's about what they feel. And so Dr. Rose talked about this too when we're trying to make changes. He's like, look, it's important to actually tell them sometimes to take a bad swing on purpose, or take one of their old swings on purpose, and tell them what they actually feel, like specifically physically, like where do they feel it at? If they're flying open, like some kids will be like, I feel like my front shoulder, and they'll like, and he'll be like, well, point to exactly where you feel it. Okay, you feel it right there in your front shoulder when you do it wrong. Now, when you do it right, where do you feel it at? And be like, well, I kind of no. I want you to really like stop and like think of where specifically, physically, you feel it, so you can differentiate those two. And that's been a big help as well.
Yeah, it's just being mindful of the way of the way everything's happening and being intentional with your approach. And I think that's something that everyone that's listening that's a baseball player can kind of take away from this podcast is like, everything that we do, I think we have to have a purpose in doing it. And I think we get stuck into a pattern sometimes when it comes to the instructional side of baseball that a lot of like kids, Little League all the way up through maybe even college, they go to their instructors and then they just expect them to do everything. And they don't necessarily have to do everything. But, it comes back to the player having the full responsibility of their career and their journey in the game of baseball. And
I don't think enough kids watch baseball, man. Like
man, that's a whole nother show.
I help coach a team now. It's pretty cool. It's just a way to kind of give back and stay in. Mm-hmm. And I straight up asked them, I was like, how many of you guys watch baseball? And like probably less than half raised their hands. And so like I asked, like, why aren't we watching? Like, why don't you guys watch baseball? It's boring. It's slow. I can't focus long enough. You know what I mean? And it's like, and so my thing is, well, how do you know what's right and what's not? Like you just trust me. Like, what if I don't know what I'm talking about? What if your other hitting kid? Like, what if, you know what I mean? Like it's your career. You have to take ownership of it. And part of that is studying it, like, right? Like studying, like,
heck yeah,
watching the best players in the world,
dude. That's like the topic today, right? I mean, that's why we're having like all of these stupid rule changes and all that crap. And I know we could spend like 2 hours talking about that, but like, I want to stay on this, dude. Is like, what's the deal? Because when you and I were growing up, the game was the exact same, but yet we were sitting, I mean, I speak for myself, but like I was sitting in front of a freaking TV watching the game or even going to games. Like I could, when MLB TV became a thing, I was like obsessed. Like it was bad.
I know you're on it all day long because I check all your Instagram stories.
It's
like
bad.
10 a day.
It's bad. But like there's so many, like for me, it's exciting because it's like, I wake up in the morning or even the night before, and it's like, hey, who's pitching tomorrow? Like,
right.
let me check the matchups. Or for example, Trout's got what, homers in 4 straight games or 5 or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was 4 or
and it's
5,
like, dude, I can't wait to watch his game to see if he freaking keeps going. Chris Davis, 0 for the century. Like, let's watch an Orioles game to see if he breaks some more records. Like, I feel bad for the guy. I love the guy. Obviously a baseball guy, but those are like the things to me seem exciting. So, in your opinion, man, like, what's changing? Is it just millennials now that have access to technology that have Snapchat?
They have access. There's too many things going on, right? There's Instagram, there's Twitter, there's YouTube, there's just so much that I think that maybe their version of watching baseball is just flinging through Instagram videos. And instead of actually sitting down to watch a game, like I feel like I'm saying that like it's work. I mean, but it's very important because like when I go to games, I want to watch guys like, what are they doing on deck? Like what are they doing in BP? Like what's Mike Trout doing in BP? Like, what he's actually doing in BP? Like, he's working on stuff. Like, I've seen that guy take BP before, and I've seen him get jammed 5 or 6 times on purpose working to go the other way because he's trying to feel something. So, I mean, like that, like all that's important versus just getting into a cage and just trying to launch balls and see how far they can go on hit tracks. Like let's work on something. And I love technology. I love hit tracks and all that stuff, but there's a time and a place for it. And I think a lot of times, like what I'm starting to see is kids building a hit tracks type swing versus like a real swing. You know what I mean? Like if you're on the, for example, I keep using you because you're a professional pitcher. If you're on the mound, like that cage swing, that hit track swing where we're trying to just crush balls, it may not translate and catch up to your fastball.
Oh yeah,
nasty off speed. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm going to get you out, man. I'm licking my chops.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because like I kind of correlate it to like me going to the driving range and like having like this driver type swing, when in reality like I'm really just trying to hit a golf ball as far as I freaking can because it looks cool and it slices and woo. But like I'm not going to be a good golfer. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that correlation made any sense whatsoever. That was like the first thing that popped in my head. So let's stay on the topic of data, dude, because I want to talk about we've already discussed how you kind of like are playing the middleman to interpretations of like maybe some verbiage to from analytical side, or even just like bigger words and whatnot to your athletes. Are you doing the same thing when it comes to like the data that you're collecting from like say a Rapsodo and a K-Vest to interpreting that to your athletes?
That's the hardest part.
Oh, I can't imagine.
That's the hardest part of the entire thing is taking that data and simplifying it and like really simplifying it because for a freshman or sophomore in high school, for example, I mean, you have to assume that they know nothing. They don't even know like what their pelvis is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't even know what a torso is sometimes. What their torso, I mean, that's the most difficult part of it. But it's fun too. It's fun because that's when you start to get creative. That's when I think as a coach you become better. And I was talking to someone the other day. His name's Connor Graham, and he's from around here, and he's a strength coach. And he was talking about how he talked to some guys down at Cressy Performance, and they said, like when he was like, what advice do you have for someone just starting out as a coach? And he was like, coach as many people as you possibly can.
That's it.
Like, yes. Coach as many as you, because so many people need so many different, they need to hear so many different things in so many different ways. And so while you're doing that, you're creating a toolbox for yourself. So I think it's important that even though like you have this technology that you don't just price it so high that nobody can use it because you need to get better at it, right? And I say that like kind of like myself too. Like I need to get better at using it. So I want to use it on more and more and more and more people so I can become really, really good at not just interpreting the data or just taking the data, but more importantly, interpreting it that makes sense for the athlete. Because that at the end of the day, like I can know every single thing that's going wrong with your swing, right? But if I can't get you to understand it, it's kind of worthless.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, I think you hit it on the head, dude. That's literally what it boils down to because, like, what is your job, right? Your job is to service the athletes. And if you can't communicate or if it, like, not even you, but like we, right? Like if we can't communicate and create these like relationships with these athletes, then we're not doing our part.
Yeah. 100%.
So dude, I'm curious because like, I'm sitting here like thinking now, like, I don't know your story. I don't know like your journey in baseball. Like, dude, take us through like, how did the love for the game like kind of come about in your life?
Well, growing up, I loved baseball and basketball. My dad is he's a lot bigger than me. He's 6'7", so I'm still waiting on that last growth spurt. So
yeah,
I
it'll
figured
come.
growing up that I was going to be in the NBA. I thought I was going to be 6'10", be in the NBA, and so I loved basketball growing up. I loved some baseball too. Even my freshman year in high school, I didn't even play baseball. I was like, I'm going to grow out and get to the NBA here. And, I'm still a 6'3", so I'm still waiting on that last.
And the wrong skin color.
So I just kept playing baseball, and I knew that basketball. I could have been like a D3 player maybe, or something like that. But I knew baseball was kind of it for me, and I didn't lift or anything in high school. That was one of the biggest regrets I had, and so I ended up getting a scholarship though to Xavier University, and started lifting. I didn't have a choice once I got there, and so my exit velocity jumped up like 10 miles an hour, like from the fall, just because I started lifting and had some more power and things. But I was just a swinger. I wasn't a hitter. I didn't have an approach or anything like that. And it took a few years, honestly, to kind of really get an approach. I loved going to school there. I loved the school. It was awesome. Unfortunately, I hate to be the injury guy. I hate to be him. And I will not use that as an excuse. I will not be the guy. Well, if I didn't get injured, I'm
going to be that guy with 20 years from now.
Well, I mean, you have you made it to a higher level than me. So, I actually had my sophomore year, I tore my hamstring. So I got a couple PRP injections, ended up redshirting that year. Played that following summer, did well, did great in the fall. Last day of fall ball the following year, we were running on a soccer field, and I practicing sliding head first, and I did the splits. I ruptured my hamstring and had to get reconstructive hamstring surgery.
Ew.
Yeah, kind of. I don't even remember when Ken Griffey Jr. had that with the Reds. So I had that too. And so I was out the following year as well. So pretty much 2 straight years I was out. Ugh. And I got back finally my 5th year playing, or my redshirt junior. I was able to play about half the year. And then it's funny because even up to that point I was still convinced I was going to the big leagues.
Yeah,
I was like, I can't barely walk, but I somehow thought I was going to get to the big leagues.
You have to have that though. Yeah,
you do. And so finally, I was able to come back, and I didn't play very good my senior year. I hit, I had a lot of raw power, but I could never tap into it. Looking back at videos, like everything, my mechanics were so bad it wasn't even funny. So after my senior year, I was a 5th year senior. I remember telling my parents, like, I'm not going out of this game like this. Like, I don't care what level I have to play at. Like, I'm not going out. And so I ended up playing independent baseball for 2 years. And geez, I mean, bringing up that subject, that could be its own podcast.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I know you played some independent baseball, but you played in higher league. I played in like the Empire League. I don't even know if that's still a league. And I played in the Pecos League too for my 2nd year, and got paid $57 a week to play in the Pecos League. And great. But here's the thing, though. Like,
it's a great experience.
Great experience.
It's amazing.
I was 25 years old. Still playing. I knew it was going to be my last year playing because I wasn't even dominating. And if you don't dominate in those leagues, it's just impossible to get moved up. And so I knew it was going to be my last year playing. And that's actually me being in the Pecos League is where the motivation to start a baseball podcast came from. Yeah, because I was like, I love baseball. I want to stay in it. I don't know if I want to coach. I'm on the field all the time as is. I'm kind of burnt out of that. But I'm going to start a podcast. And so that's where that came from. And then after I got back, I didn't want to coach, but people kept asking me to. And didn't have very many other skills, and I've been on a field my whole life. So
Right.
I just naturally got back into coaching, and then like anything else, I wanted to be the best at it. So that's where the obsession to travel around the country, talk to different coaches, take different classes, buy technology, try to just all that stuff came into play, and here we are now.
It's a constant evolution, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I never wanted to be a coach ever as a player, but ended up being a coach.
And here we are, man. We're
And
just
here we are,
two
man.
dudes recording podcasts.
Yeah. Wait, are you still in Omaha, Nebraska, by the way?
Yeah. Well, hey, dude, it's actually, I usually dog on Omaha because it's like, so, sidebar, when I first moved here, like the first weekend that I was here, it was like 0 degrees and like snow. It wasn't even snow. It was like ice. So I'm like 3 days away from like going to New York to get surgery. And like, I'm going up my stairs and I totally just slip and fall. Like apparently like icy platforms is like a thing. But nowadays, we just had our first 80-degree day. So
yeah, oh yeah. I have a lot of family in Omaha. My mom went to Creighton and went to medical school at Creighton, and
no way.
I have some aunts there as well. Oh yeah, I usually go back. Usually every August, I'll go back to Omaha. But it's a cool place.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was just saying, like, I know we're recording a podcast right now, but let me know when you're in Omaha next time.
Oh yeah. I mean, we'll do one. That'd be actually a lot of fun.
We'll do an in-house podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got a recorder. That's another topic of as far as like evolving podcast goes.
Right.
Getting all these nice fancy gadgets. So I have a means to take it on the road now. But yeah, dude, that'll be cool. It's funny. So I'm moving. I'm actually the apartment that I'm in right now. I'm moving in 10 days, and I'm actually going to live on campus at Creighton.
Really?
Yeah.
Man,
I don't know if I'm supposed to say that on the air, but yeah, they're letting me.
You're going to be how old are you now? 29?
15 mentally and 45
15?
physically.
Okay.
No, I think I'm. What am I? 27?
27?
27 now. Yeah.
Okay, I'm 27 too.
Yeah, we're the same age. We talked about this last time, I think.
Oh, that's okay. I guess I got my memories a little.
We graduated in 2010, right?
Yeah,
high school.
Okay, I thought for some reason you were a year older. I don't know why.
Is it the beard or is it the bald head?
Well, first of all, I can't talk because I have both. I'm not quite bald yet, but I'm getting there.
Oh gosh,
so
yeah. Well, you got the
in 5 years we'll be brothers.
Yeah. Well, shoot, man. Like I started losing my hair freaking when I was 18.
Really?
It was, I don't know what happened. I was a guy, like, I peaked at 17, dude. I was super hot. Like, I was like tall, blonde hair, blue eyes. And I was like, yeah, I'm cool, whatever. And then, like, I came back to school the next year and, like, I had one of those dang receding hairlines. And everyone was like, wait, are you losing your hair? I didn't know what that meant. And then fast forward, a couple years and your boy was freaking straight razor and that ish.
Life comes at you quick sometimes.
That's like that's like, if I'm scared of needles and I'll never get a tattoo, but in an alternate reality, I'd get that tattooed across my chest with like no regrets on the under it.
So there's this one thing I wanted to talk to you about because I think it's going to help out a lot of people who are listening.
Yeah, we got to get serious now. All right, here we go.
Yeah, no. So like growing up as a player, I never. And I actually just did like a couple of Instagram stories on this earlier. I never talked to my coaches a lot. I just figured, like most players, I was good enough that they would just automatically know that I was the best player and that they would play me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was just my always thing, like high school, college, like whatever. Now as a coach, like I realize how hard it is to not play a player who I have a relationship with, who has talked to me, who I know because he's talked to me that he's a good person, that he works hard. And I'll tell you right now, like there are a couple players who are on the team right now who I specifically vouched for because I knew them as a person, like I have a relationship with them.
Right.
And so I was like, so if it's between one player and another, and I know somebody, I don't know the other kid, like I want that kid I know. And it's just it's the human element. You can call it politics, you can call it like whatever you want to call it, but it's true and it's so important. And I just think that the players who are listening out there need to start doing this. And I'm talking about like for their team, but also in school as well.
With all aspects of life, dude. Like
Yes.
it's funny you bring that up, dude, because like this is probably literally the most overused phrase of my whole entire podcast, but it comes down to like putting yourself in the best possible situation to be successful. Like I say that over and over again because there's so many different variables in life that we cannot control. Right. Like there's just, we can get hit by a bus, like whatever, we can't control that. But with that being said, like there's a lot of other things that we can do that are within our grasp, within our control that sets us up for success. And I think you freaking nailed it, dude. Like, and that's something I don't think I've ever touched on, but like, it's true, right? Like the human element, the human aspect of just being like, instead of like, hey coach, it's like, hey, Patrick, like what's going on, man? Like how's your day? Like what game did you watch yesterday? Like what's, you want to go grab some food together, like whatever. But then at the end of the day, it's right, like you said, call it politics, call it whatever, but you're the guy getting PT. You're the guy you're the guy batting in the 9-hole playing right field, even though maybe your talent level is a little off than the guy that's not. So I think you hit it on the head.
We all have heard the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's just true. And I caught myself as a coach. I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. Like I want this kid just because I know him, just because he looks happy to be there every day. Like he talks to me. He's this.
Yeah, he likes the game. He watches the game. He's a student.
And I was like,
that's another thing, right? Like the student of the game aspect too is like I'm always gonna and maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe I should, I don't know, but like I'm always gonna respect an athlete more if he's like the guy that's grinding, putting in the extra work, doing the little things, being in the weight room or the training room or whatever it is, or like just watching games and like coming up to you and like creating that relationship and saying like, yo, what do you got on Trout, dude? He's hit 4 homers in 4 games. Like having that in the know mentality where there's like no really excuse not to, because we live in a day and age now where like you get a notification every time someone like sneezes. So like, why wouldn't you be connected like that? But if someone comes up to me and is a true student and a true lover of the game of baseball, and that's the sport like we're targeting, then I'm like, yo, like this kid freaking gets it. Like you're in, man.
You will go out of your way to go above and beyond to help that kid.
100%.
I feel the exact same way for hitters that I work with. Who are on my team, for example. And again, I'm just saying that just because I, like looking back, I didn't realize this. Like that was the biggest mistake I've made. And I could say, I made that mistake taking classes too. I wouldn't communicate with the teacher. And so when we would travel sometimes when I was at Xavier, I'd be like, yeah, just to let you know, I'm not going to be here like next week or whatever. And that's the only time I'd ever see him. Like they're not going to go out of their way to accommodate me.
Yeah, they don't know you.
Enough time to take that test to prepare for. And again, maybe that's a stupid example, but it's everything like that. If you want to get ahead, like that's how you get ahead right there. Like relationships, reaching out to people,
dude,
talking to them.
Yes.
Telling you, man. Like I'm telling you, like that's the secret.
But that's the beauty of podcasting, right? We hit it on, I think earlier, I don't know if we were recording or not, but like that's the beauty of like what you and I do is like we essentially like network every single day.
Yes.
And like we create these like networking relationships where I may not have like say like the Dodgers hire you and like put you in the head of like baseball ops, and like a year down the road they have like job openings and you're like, you remember that Robby guy? Like he seemed to like know what he was talking about, even though we only did 2 podcasts together. Like I'm gonna hire him. Dude, that's how it all happens.
You're one of your last guests, Jared Gaynor. Okay, that's one of my best buds. I just talked to him last night on the phone, and one of the things that we talked about is there's a couple teams who are interested right now in him. And I was like, dude, if you get that job, like you better bring me on. He's like, no doubt, like of course.
Yeah, that's the network.
That's what I mean.
100%. It's like it's the people that are like continuously on your mind when you think of like a certain subject, and like when you think about like the human interaction and like just general nice people. Like those are the people that you want, right? Like I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I've had people on my podcast that are like, I probably will never speak to them again, and maybe it wasn't a great guest, but the people that have come on and like actually like stayed on with me after the show and like talked and been like, yo, how's the rehab going or whatever. Yep. Like those are the people that are constantly like on my head. Like now not only were you great like on the show and everything, but like now we've created like this friendship / like relationship to where we're not just doing one podcast and stopping. Like, we're collaborating now, or at least we're like trying to figure out ways to collaborate and produce good stuff, because like those are the people you want to do it with, you know?
And it really like here's another example. Like, I had on Chris Welsh, who's one of the Reds broadcasters. Great guy. I had him on really early on. Like, it's one of my earlier episodes. He helped me. I got a phone call last summer, and it was from I didn't recognize the number. I picked it up. It was Bronson Arroyo. He had reached out to Bronson to try to get him. So I ended up driving back down a week later to Bronson's house to record a podcast with him because of the relationship I now had with Chris Welsh. Now Bronson, I just hit him up, and I'm trying to get Scooter Jeanette. He's texting Scooter Jeanette to get him on my show.
Yes.
So you see how it's a domino effect.
Yeah, and they all vouch for you too.
It doesn't work perfect every time, and you know that too. Right. But you just keep doing it eventually, and it will.
And it's about just being like genuine and authentic, right? Like, it's like so here's the thing: is like, I think a misinterpretation with like podcasting or just entertainment in general is like, I could be one version of myself like on Instagram. So every time the camera's on me, I could be like this happy-go-lucky, like free-spirited, super nice guy. Or when the podcast is recording, I could be this guy, and then we get off, and I'm like, "Hey, see you, dude. Like, don't ever talk to me again." Yeah. Then it's like, that's the guy, right? Like, that's the guy. You're like, okay, cool. Like, later, you did a good show. Like, hopefully, you promote my episode. But like, that's not the guy. Like 10 years down the road, when there's like an opening for something, or you know, you need like some type of assistance from a general like category in life, and it's like, oh, dude, you remember that one dude? He was like super cool. Came on the show, like Patrick Jones. I think I'm in his area. I'll hit him up, and it's like, boom, there it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's true, man. I mean, it's
just be just be genuine, like just be authentic, man. Like, just be nice to people. Like, and I know it's cliche, but like, it comes back to like just treating people like the way you want to be treated, with respect and like a smile. And I think that can go beyond like a baseball podcast, right? Like, we could talk about how like the world we live in today is like not very pleasant, not very good. I think there's a lot of bad things happening, but you have the power and the ability, like just within yourself, to like make someone else's day better, just by like saying, yo, like, dope shoes, man. Or hey, like, you look hey, your hair is really nice today. Even though it's almost gone. Like, it looks good. But like, those are the type of things, right? Because now our perception on our day is like kind of changed just by someone else. And it could have been like a random person. It didn't have to be the president of the United States. It's just another human being.
Dude, completely agree.
We're on like a philosophical. That's a tough word to say. Philosophical level now.
I know.
Dude,
I love it. I currently love this episode because we're just hitting on everything.
Yeah,
and it's just a conversation where we're just. I mean, this is how we would talk. Like,
100%. I forgot we were recording an episode. Honestly, I looked. Actually, speaking of that, I want to be respectful of your time, dude. So if you can. Well, first things first, I've had an absolute blast with you, dude. I want to do this again in the future, definitely. But tell my audience where they can find you, and I'll link all of your social stuff into the show notes of this episode.
At P Jones Baseball on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then just Patrick Jones Baseball on iTunes, Spotify for podcasts. Got your guys' host, Robby Row. He's on one of the episodes. We already recorded one.
Yeah,
together.
I'll link that too.
Yeah, you're on my show. So again, man, we're kind of doing the exact same thing. Just you have the knowledge of pitching, which I don't know anything about. And,
it's all the same, man. Energy transfer, force application, and do it fast.
People ask me like, oh, my kids, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I don't know. Just throw it over the plate. Like, I don't
That's what I say with hitting too. I don't know. Just hit the ball.
No, but I appreciate it, man. I mean, this was like I said, this is a lot of fun, and I was kind of like dragging today. It was one of those days. I just woke up, just rolling through, and I have some adrenaline pumping now, and that's because of just having this phone conversation, and it's what I love it. I really do.
No, absolutely, man. I thoroughly appreciate everything you're doing for the community, man, and appreciate you coming on the show. I'll sign you off the air, but thanks again, dude.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, guys, that's it for this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, then I would highly encourage you and highly appreciate you if you left a review for this episode. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if there's anything that you need me to improve on. Let me know if there's anyone that you want me to bring on the show. Like I said in the introduction, that you can always find me on Instagram at Robby Row 12. And also my website, www.therobbyrowshow.com. So be sure to go check those means of communication out, and we will talk to you probably within the next couple of days. And I look forward to it. Y'all have a good rest of your day. Much love. God bless. Talk to you.